Our guest in this edition of WQA Radio is Gary Beutler, also known as Gary the Water Guy, longtime WQA member, and has gained quite a following with his own YouTube channel, which, by the way, you can find at youtube.com/Gary the Water Guy. So, Gary, welcome to WQA Radio. Glad you're here.
Great to be here, Wes.
You have been using videos, as we mentioned, to explain to customers water treatment solutions, why they should use certified personnel when dealing with water issues. And I'm pretty impressed by the fact that you've also been featured on such programs as Good Morning America. So that's very impressive. We'll talk more about that, but just good to know that we're dealing with somebody who's really kind of broken into some new space when it comes to communicating about point of use and point of entry water treatment products as well. But Gary, first, tell us how you got started making these YouTube videos and starting your own YouTube channel.
Well, I was looking, like so many folks are that are self-employed in business, looking for ways how to promote our business. And 12, 13 years ago, I kind of I found somebody online that was sharing how a different social medias worked, everything from LinkedIn to Twitter to Facebook, and YouTube was one of them. And they kind of they sort of interviewed an expert on each one of those areas. And I kind of looked at it and I thought that YouTube made a lot of sense for the water filtration industry, and especially for what I'm seeing is that a lot of folks don't understand water filtration. They don't, the average family might have difficulty envisioning or having some appreciation for what's the difference between a reverse osmosis system and a water softener. So I thought it was a great way to kind of explain it to people, and I thought it was a great way that I could show it, demonstrate it, and long term I thought it was also going to be a great way that I could teach people how to do their own maintenance, how to do their own installations, how to troubleshoot, and I thought it was just a great communication media.
And what have you found as you have proceeded through the last several years doing this? I take it you've been doing more and more of these videos. Can you give us an idea of how many and what kinds of things you talk about?
Yeah, so there's 450 videos to date.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, that's for sure. And generally, I release a new one every single week. And so it all started, like my very first video was how does a water softener work? Because that seemed to be what customers were asking me the most about and seemed to be the most confused about. And quite frankly, before I got into the water filtration industry, I didn't know how a water softener worked, even though I'd had one in my homes for almost 20 years. So it just seemed like a good place to start. And then after that, it's how it works, how to install, how to maintain, how to troubleshoot. And there's countless topics. I mean, on a weekly basis, I have a little notes section in my iPhone where I add new ideas for video topics. I've done reviews, I've done comparisons, I've done not too long ago, I did one on comparing, I think, 17 different bottled water types and qualities, and trying to explain the difference between spring water and reverse osmosis and distilled water. So it's limitless.
Well, I mentioned you're a WQA member, and you are a dealer with your own business, correct?
Yeah, so I'm located 100 miles north of Toronto. It's kind of the cottage country where the folks from Toronto have their cottages. It's a very small area. Our population is about 18,000 people, pretty much zero population growth in 20 years. So that's where it started to get that going. I also have a couple e-commerce stores. I have a Canadian e-commerce store and a US e-commerce store, and we also sell on Amazon.
Well, I think I mentioned at the outset, Gary, that you do talk about the value of a certified professional dealing with water treatment and water treatment solutions. Talk about what you do to emphasize and underscore that point when you're visiting with customers and when you're also obviously on your YouTube videos.
Yeah, it's interesting, when I present my business card when I'm on site at a family's home, and it's quite often I'm asked, what do those letters after your name mean, the CWS, the CI, And it's a good opportunity for me to speak about being a certified water specialist, the process that I go through, every 3 years I have to get so many points to be able to maintain that status. about the courses that I took, about the water quality conventions that I attended. And years ago, I remember writing the exam at the convention many years ago, and sitting in all the seminars. And I talk about the seminars that I attended this year, and I don't know how many seminars I've attended over all the other conventions over the years. But the consumers seem to be really, really impressed by that. You know, you're not just some guy that was selling used cars a year ago and next year is going to be selling appliances. You know, that they feel that you've made a real commitment to understanding water filtration. And once you show your listening skills to the family, you're listening to what concerns them, they feel pretty confident that the recommendations you're going to make are really going to go a long way towards solving their concern about their water.
And when you're talking about these videos that you're doing, I mean, you're doing the classic case of content marketing, as it's called in the business, where you're putting content out into the internet, and people who are able to search and find you discover your informative and educational videos, and I would imagine then that leads to some business for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Many of the emails we get start off with, "Oh, I saw Gary's video and he said this or this or this, and how do I get that and that and that for my family?" So yeah, absolutely. A lot of people feel they know me. I mean, I've even had people start off with, "You seem like someone I can trust." And I think that's just phenomenal that would come through in a video, you know, but it's not uncommon for me to show up at a family's home, and I introduce myself and they say, "Oh, I know you, I saw your video." But of course they don't know I've got 450 of them, but yeah.
Right. And I would imagine too that you even perhaps had more impact than you might know during COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, during COVID, you know, everybody was struggling, but we were in the right place at the right time with the right product. And that was when people either weren't able to go out and go to get the replacement filters or the replacement UV lamps, and they were already planning to do that at home. They found the videos that explained how to do the work, and then they found that we could easily order them from us online, and we could ship them the replacement lamps. And they felt pretty confident that if they ran into a problem doing that work, they could contact us and we'd help them through it, which is what we did.
Now, I can imagine some members listening to this and thinking, you know, I have not really done much in terms of this kind of work. I've not really thought about video. In fact, I'm maybe a little hesitant, reluctant to do video, but I'm encouraged now by what I'm hearing from Gary. What would you suggest about somebody getting started doing what you're doing with an idea or with an aim toward increasing business, increasing outreach, and just simply educating the consumer?
Well, you really need to realize it's not a commercial. Okay, that's the first and foremost. So what you're talking about is you're just sharing your knowledge. And I always say to someone that's starting off, they say, "Well, what should I talk about?" Well, what's the most common question you're asked from your potential customers? What are they asking you? And that's what you start with, because if they're asking those questions, a lot of other people are asking the same questions. And so if you can educate them about that, and then toward the end of the video say, "And oh, by the way, if you're interested in some more information about this, you can contact me," however they choose that contact to be.
And in case somebody's thinking, "Oh, wow, this is just I'm so busy right now. How in the world would I find time to do this?" Are we talking about lengthy videos here, or say 2-3 minutes?
Yeah, it ranges. There's, you know, I have I do shorts, so they're by definition videos that are less than 60 seconds. So I don't know how many of those we got out there, but they range in length. Depends on how long you're going to do it. Like, I mean, the one I did where I tested the different types of drinking bottle of water out there, I think that one's 30 minutes long, and
oh, really?
It's one that we get a lot of views on. It's one of our fastest growing videos actually right now. But you know, most of my videos are in the 3 to 4 minute range.
Okay. And another concern or question that might be coming up in the mind of a member listening to this: is, wow, I've got to create a studio, I've got to get equipment and, lights, camera, action. That's going to cost a lot, isn't it? What do you say?
Well, I mean, when I started it, like I say, 12 years ago with my very first video, How Does a Water Softener Work, which has gotten almost 1 million views so far. I just bought a very inexpensive camera from Walmart. It was, I think, $200. And but right now, I mean, iPhone. I mean, this iPhone that I have right now in my hands that I use every day just as a phone, that takes phenomenal videos, far better than the ones that I started with many years ago. And you can definitely start with that. And typically, if you start with that and a microphone that you can buy for usually $50 or $60, that gives you a great start. You can use, if you can situate yourself near a window to use the natural light, that works incredibly well. That's where I started. And copy a bit of a script and just be yourself. Just be yourself on camera, and that's where you start.
And that's the important point, is you do have to start, don't you? And start without the sense of, well, it doesn't have to be perfect. And, maybe you stumble a little bit, or you have to do a little bit of editing and so forth. But, get it out there, right? It's the old better done than not. And I really think that you're an inspiration here, Gary. I mean, have you ever thought about that? Somebody listening to this thinking, I could do that too. I can not only just reach people with the idea that maybe it'll help my business, but I'm actually putting some information out there that might just help some people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're right. The point is, you just got to get started. I remember when I did my first video 10 or 12 years ago, a friend of mine also has a business like I do, not too far away, non-competing area. And I sent him a link to the video, and he sent me a reply back saying, "What are you wasting your time on that for?" And I said, well, I think it's worthwhile. So anyway, I'm glad I continued on, and I didn't get turned off by the negatives.
Well, and they'll be out there too, won't they?
Absolutely,
there will be some people who will find some degree of fault with whatever you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get that in my comments. I get, some people say I use the wrong terminology and things like that. But again, I'm not speaking to a water treatment professional. I'm speaking to families.
Well, Gary, thank you. What would you say, the kind of the one thing that people might want to think about doing that they could get started? What would that first step be to maybe, venturing into the idea of YouTube videos for their business?
Yeah, I mean, it's just to get started. I mean, if you don't want to actually do YouTube, you can actually start with just doing videos that you post on Instagram. Again, by definition, they're less than a minute. You can use the same videos on TikTok, and you can start that way. And they're very casual kind of videos. They're very, just holding the camera in front of your face and going for it. And then once you start to see some success and you feel good about some of the stuff you've done, and those same videos you can repurpose into YouTube Shorts. So the same content you can upload to 3 different places, and that's a great place to start. That wasn't available when I started 10, 12 years ago. But yeah, I mean, the idea is just get started.
Lots of opportunity out there. So
there sure is.
We're glad to have you on the show to talk about it. And the last thing I wanted to ask you is, how did you land the Good Morning America gig? I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is pretty impressive. It was interesting. They emailed me. They emailed me, I think, only 2 weeks before the segment aired. They were doing a Earth Day. Earth Day was on the Saturday, so every day that week they were doing a segment that had something related to Earth Day and that kind of thing. And they wanted a water filtration specialist to come on and to speak about forever chemicals and PFAS. So I guess I don't know who else they contacted, but they found me on YouTube, and like so many folks do these days, and they thought I'd be a good fit. They asked me if I had any television background, and I hadn't. They asked me if I was actually from the U.S. and just living in Canada temporarily, and I said no. I'm actually born in Canada, and but they, so it went back and forth, a lot of communications back and forth, and it was only at the last minute that they actually said they sent me the tickets, and away I went to Times Square.
Very, very cool.
There.
All right, Gary, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. If you want to see Gary's videos, youtube.com/Gary the Water Guy, which is an excellent moniker, by the way. Gary Beutler joining us on WQA Radio. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks very much.